Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Sandy Vosk, founder of Advantage Technology Solutions. We work with executives in manufacturing, distribution, and logistics companies, especially third-party logistics companies, who are challenged in leveraging technology to achieve their business objectives, especially in an e-commerce world. We help companies select and implement technologies that improve profitability, operational efficiency, and their customer satisfaction. And never was that more important or challenging today. I'm very excited about this webinar and greatly appreciative of Mantis and AD Ing, the Customer Success Manager, who's been extremely helpful in coordinating the webinar as well as the presentation today. So I'll go through the agenda. If you could. We'll start with some basic introductions. I did that for myself. Go through some e-commerce challenges that are affecting the industry, some trends. The primary purpose and time will be spent in questions. A couple of questions that we just have for the panelists. I'll serve as moderator, and then we'll have the poll results for those who answered it. I want you to know just a bit of housekeeping that if anyone has any questions, feel free to enter them in the chat window, and we'll try to entertain those as well. But I want to thank especially Bill Drummer, who I'll let him introduce himself, but we really want to make this whole webinar around the eyes of the customer, the eyes of the folks who are challenged most. So Bill's an extremely well-established CEO and in the supply chain industry, third-party logistics for a long time. So Bill, thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here, honored to be here actually. I'm Bill Drummer. I'm the CEO of GPA Logistics Group. I've been in this industry for, as Sandy said, a long time, 35 years or so. I've owned and operated my own 3PLs for the past close to 30 years, starting out in New Jersey for many years. I had a 3PL in New Jersey, in Edison, New Jersey. And came out to California about 8 years ago as I saw that the industry was moving out more this way. So currently I'm the CEO of GPA Logistics Group, along with my partner, Brian Cantrell. We operate 6 warehouses of close to 1 million square feet in California, in the Los Angeles area and in the New Jersey area. And we specialize in shipping consumer products to major retailers. And of course, as everybody knows, because of this webinar we're on right now, e-commerce shipping, which has grown very dramatically over the past few years, and particularly in 2020. So we've had to adapt our operations and our staff and our technology to keep up with and get ahead of the curve actually, and be able to service our customers as the landscape of this economy changes, and keep up with consumer demand and the demand of businesses.
Well, thank you very much, Bill, for joining us today, and for being willing to share, not just with us, but with those who've chosen to be on the webinar. I'd also like to introduce now the panelists. My friend and colleague, John Cosgrove. John, please introduce yourself.
I'm John Cosgrove. I'm one of the founders and president of Atlantic Handling Systems in Fairlawn, New Jersey, which is a New York metro area company. We design, sell, install, and service material handling systems and help with integration and try to streamline people with their supply chain. I'm the former president of the Material Handling Equipment Distributors Association and have been in the industry now over 40 years.
Thanks, John. And last but not least, my friend and colleague, Lee Rector, Vice President of Mantis Americas.
Thanks, Sandy. Yes, Mantis itself, we're a global leading warehouse management software provider, as well as the market leading provider of slotting and optimization technology. We have clients in over 30 countries and currently standing around 1,100 clients around the globe.
Great, thanks, Lee. So next, Adi. So what are the core e-commerce challenges? It's not going to be any surprise on this slide. The number one is the speed of change, which was drastic enough without the impact of COVID-19. Customer demands, which again, were increasing before, and now with so many more people shopping from home, that has been exacerbated. The key question is, how can you do it profitably? And I hope, Bill shares some insights into things that you could look at from your business perspective. And, really from John Lee, my perspective, and especially from Bill's, how to most effectively manage space, labor, and the growth in technology and how to utilize it most effectively. Next. So in terms of trends, I shared a nice infographic at the end of the year. It's just unbelievable how fast e-commerce continues to grow, with online sales increasing by 49%, and no doubt who the leaders are in terms of the retailers. Next. This is an interesting bit of research, and in terms of how orders have changed post-COVID. And you can see, people are obviously processing more orders at peak over the holidays, dealing with more single line orders. I'm a little surprised that no changes to our order profile, but definitely not surprised that we must process and pick orders faster to meet aggressive cutoff times, which I think will continue to be an issue going forward. Next. Returns are sometimes minimized from a third-party logistic, manufacturing, distribution perspective, but just as e-commerce grows, so do returns. And in some companies, it's a significant issue that needs to really be thought through from space, labor, and managing in and out. And there's actually a whole market, which Lee, maybe you want to touch on right now, the secondary market, how huge this really is.
Again, when we start taking a look at returns in itself, it's not just the processing, but it's the space required for the processing. And again, if you're in the apparel market versus say in the consumer goods market, if I get 41% of my product coming back, which is apparel, that's a small footprint. But if I'm returning back household products like dishwashers or say microwave machines, I have a very big demand on space for that returns processing area. And then from a technology point of view, how do I do it quickly? Getting my dispositions code through the system, matching my RMAs. And this has been a challenge for a lot of companies, where traditionally, when a store returns were done, to the tune of around 70%, I would take back my microwave to the store where I bought it, and they looked after it, and it was nothing wrong with it, or what we would call a no-fault return. But now those are coming back to the DC, putting tremendous pressure on the space that we have available. And I think that number up there, 15-20%, CB Richard Ellis just published the fact that companies handling returns these days are going to require 15 to 20% extra space. So we have to look to people like John and other operations or opportunities. So how do I get blood from a stone, or how do I get more space inside my current operation? And those are some of the things, the challenges that face our clients these days.
We'll talk more about that in a bit. Next. So even though this is really interesting as to why returns happen. And, from a 3PL perspective, we think of just shipping orders and getting them there on time and, making sure that we're meeting the customer perspective. But, a lot of it is it didn't match, didn't fit, it looked different. So there's a lot of criteria that goes into what people order online and when they choose to return it. And I just thought that was interesting to share. Next. This is really interesting in how you're solving the problem of processing more returns. And, obviously it takes labor. I've only seen one really automated process where they were managing returns inbound the same way that they were processing, but very rarely. It's usually labor oriented. Bill, what has been your experience, to date in this area?
Unfortunately, returns are a problem and they're a headache. And like you said, it requires labor, it requires some management. space utilization, we require very precise instructions from our customers on exactly what they want us to do with returns and when is it worthwhile for us to spend the manpower and the labor to manage it and to try to either refurbish and return to stock, determine if something is worth going to stock, and if it's not going back into regular stock, then is it a grade A or grade B damage, and then decide on how they're going to dispose of it or resell it on the secondary market. If we don't have clear instructions from our customer, it becomes a space gobbling problem in the warehouse.
How often is it a surprise? Is it a conversation at the beginning of the contract, or is it something that happens along the way and then becomes an area of discussion?
Well, we always bring it up at the beginning of the contract, and hopefully we get good instructions right away. Otherwise, if we don't have clear instructions, and as the returns start to come in, we start notifying our customers, we take pictures, and we ask, please help us, because it's not to our benefit or for your benefit to have these goods sitting in our warehouse in an inefficient manner and not selling and just being charged storage.
John, one of the areas that pops up when it comes to returns is where do you put it? How do you manage it? What have you seen both in the problems and potential solutions?
Well, it's twofold, Sandy. We talk about with apparel, with e-commerce's growth, it means there's more returns coming back into the warehouse. And with apparel, there's so many size, color, style, and all of these SKUs have to be you have to determine upfront what you're going to do with them. Are you going to repackage them? Are you going to resell them? Or are you going to send them out to outlets? So, we talk about high density type of storage and try to get them in. Some customers, they'll come back in with a return goods authorization label on it, and they'll put it through a scanning tunnel and sort it and then send it out to outlets that way on apparel. And what we talked about on the electronics items, they're big items, so they continue to encroach on the warehouse. So it's a big space problem. We see people using their vertical height sometimes trying to put things away and have high density storage systems. But as Bill had pointed out, it's a real problem. You got to determine upfront whether you're going to be in that business to repackage and retry to sell, or you're just going to get rid of it because it's taking up a lot of room and space in the warehouse.
Yeah, we'll get to space in a minute. I got something I want to share on that. But next, 80. Here it is. Space. Now, this is going to be a hard slide for people to read in the audience. You don't need to read it. Let me just share the top line is there's no space. There's minimal space across the country. Bill, what's your perspective?
Space is a major issue right now, particularly in the larger markets. All the warehouses that I'm familiar with and speak to are all packed to the gills. Nobody has any room. We're getting calls on a daily basis from wholesalers and retailers asking, do you have space? I have containers coming in and I have nowhere to put it. All the 3PLs that I'm familiar with are all looking through their customer base and saying, if I don't have the space, then I'm going to keep the customers and service the customers that are my good customers, and the ones that are not, I'm going to ask them to find somewhere else to place their containers. And it's turning into a situation where nobody has the room. We've been in contact with local and also national brokers, real estate brokers, and they're scrambling to try to find space for their clients. And prices are obviously going up. Landlords are demanding very high rents and very steep security deposits. So even finding space of your own is becoming a real issue at this point.
Lee, is it the same situation in Canada?
I would suggest that it is. It's not just the space requirement, but it's actually the space that's available. So we might have, 5 or 6% availability space, but at 18 foot high, that's really not conducive to good warehousing. So here, basically, you're not getting any returns on your storage space. So if you're doing a cross dock or you're doing some sort of production operation, that would be useful there. But when we're looking at storage and operations and multi-level type storage scenarios, that space is very limited. You get into the port cities of Montreal, Toronto, and BC, you would still see very little availability for what we would call true warehousing, say over 24 or 28 foot clear.
Yep. Great. Next, 80. So now we get to the core, which are questions. And, Bill, I want to really direct this to you. We'll go through you. What were the biggest challenges you faced with respect to e-commerce, and how and where? We've said that flexibility and adaptability are key. So how has that, aided you through your challenges and how you see it going forward?
Well, there's been a trend towards more e-commerce over the past few years, obviously, and we've been anticipating that. And obviously, we've been growing our e-commerce shipping and our staffing and management, et cetera. But the accelerated growth in 2020 forced everybody to scramble from a few different perspectives. You have to make sure that A, you have the space, B, you have, because now customers are carrying more inventory for a longer time. They're carrying more SKUs, and the SKUs have to be slotted properly. If it's not the same type of bulk storage that you have when you're doing retail shipping. And the technology and the training of the staff is critical also. You have to have a WMS that can manage piece picking, scan and pack, and all the UPS, FedEx, or DHL, et cetera, type of shipping, and inventory management, inventory control. If your WMS is not up to that, you're pretty much dead in the water. And the physical space also. If you're set up for B2B type of warehousing and shipping, and all of a sudden you have to have forward pick locations and slot and flow rack and all of that you need for e-commerce picking, then you're in trouble. So we've been going in that direction for a long time now already. Our e-commerce has been a very, very strong part of our customer, what we offer our customers, the ability to do omni-channel shipping, and we have really good partners like John, who are able to supply us when we need to, and we need to reconfigure our racking, add in flow rack, add in shelving, move stuff around in the warehouse so that we can accommodate the sudden increase in e-commerce shipping. So that's what we've been able to do. It's a challenge. And the key thing for us, again, goes back to, we just need good information from our customers. If they're able to feed us information and tell us what to expect and what they need us to do, then that makes a big difference for us. If they don't give us the information and we just, and all of a sudden it's like just dumped on us, then it becomes a big, big challenge.
Do you see that increasing in terms of pace going forward? I mean, I would imagine that's not going to reduce.
I think people have gotten very used to shipping, to ordering online. And they've gotten very used to the standards that Amazon has set for the entire industry, which is basically, I want my tracking number right away. I want my package to arrive tomorrow. So where we used to have 24 to 48-hour windows to ship, at this point, it's if the order comes in today, it's got to ship out today. And with increased volumes, that puts pressure on everybody. If we used to ship 200 or 300 e-com orders for a particular customer in the past, suddenly it's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 orders a day. And they still all have to be picked and shipped out today. And it has to be done with accuracy. And at the same time, with cost savings, we have to make sure that we keep our costs low so that it doesn't cost our customers too much. We have companies who are in a bind where they ship a product that is not a high value product. And if you're trying to ship a low value product via e-commerce, the labor and our charges add up pretty quickly. So we have gotten a lot of pressure from our customers telling us, I need you to be at this price point for me to be able to make money to service my clients and ship. And we've had to implement, like we said, the technology and the savings costs on our end so that we can pass those savings on to our customers.
One area that I'm specifically focused on, and I know, it's not just the warehouse management software, it's the automation, it's mobility, it's integration. I know that there are things that you're already doing with mobile shipping stations and looking at robotics. John, this is like right in your sweet spot in terms of flexibility and adaptability, especially around the space criteria. What are you seeing from your customers, and, what insights would you share?
Well, I think Bill hit the nail right on the head. You need to put together an architectural plan of technology and automation together and get it right with the return on investment for you. Because as you said, your customers continue to try to drive your price down, and we got to the new norm is what, Amazon and all the e-commerce companies are doing. I just recently did a major job for an e-commerce company here, a very large e-commerce company that everyone knows. And we talked about flexibility today. Every item in the whole warehouse is on wheels. So that it's so versatile that it's incredible. I've never seen it to that extent where now the conveyor is all on wheels, everything is on wheels. And this is sticks and 6 miles of conveyor. And, it just shows the versatility. But, we all know that e-commerce is growing so much, it's here to stay. And in warehouses, you're still trying to, like if Bill's doing retail orders also still to stores, you have to get that integration right. Where you're trying to ship stores, the old cases, and now you're doing eaches to e-commerce people. And, people are trying to use the space. When you talked about space before, I just wanted to make a comment. In the New York area, we have people that are physically raising roofs in warehouse spaces. They're having roof lifters come in and raise roofs so they can get it right. And we're, building pick modules, but we're using the vertical space and high density to try to condense the warehouse because there's no inventory according to a lot of the real estate people.
Lee, one of the things that Bill mentioned was about, profitability, right? And knowing your products. And one area that, you really raised my knowledge and awareness of is slotting. And, so how do you see this fitting into the equation in better space utilization and profitability?
Well, I mean, when we talk about product slotting, is making sure we get the product in the right position in the warehouse. That's either in the right storage medium or within that storage medium itself. We want to make sure that we reduce not only the space required, or we'll call it the underutilized space in the location, but we also want to reduce the travel and the work around supporting that SKU wherever it is in the building. Bill had made a number of statements, and John's made a number of statements regarding technology. And what we're seeing is this e-commerce is really moving the 3PL marketplace from, we'll call it a bricks and mortar and labor, that it's actually more of a technology transaction. You're basically out, you're stuck in the weeds if you don't have a technology solution that can support all your trading partners and all of these things that Bill's mentioned in real time. Because one of the things that we all are still trying to get a grasp on around the e-commerce market is that time, it's a commodity that we can't buy and we can't sell it, we can't trade for it. And we're all trying to do the same thing, but we're all trying to do it in real time now. And these are some of the things where technology has really allowed the front runners in the market to get a grasp and get ahead of this game where it's real-time integration, it's real-time inventory, real-time allocation, all of these things that are done with the solutions that are being embedded into our ask of our 3PL partners.
So that's just a great segue to the next question, Adi, if you could put that up. And Bill, I think it would be great. So what advice can you share when you've been through all of this, with executives out there in the audience today who are challenged, whether it's labor, space, technology, profitability? Where would you begin? Just, go ahead, please.
If you're working with a 3PL partner, you obviously want to make sure that a few things. First of all, that you want to make sure that they have the space to handle what you need them to do. You want to make sure that they have the technology, which is critical. And you want to make sure that they have some experience doing so also. Unfortunately, there's quite a few 3PLs who are very good at shipping B2B and retail, and they are failing at e-commerce because it is a different process. It is a different system. You do need different training, a different mindset for it, and not everyone is successful at it. Some of us have been successful at it, and it requires adaptability and flexibility, like you said. It requires good technology, and it requires a partnership with your clients. I mean, I've had clients also always tell me, we're partners, and some of them really mean it, and some of them don't. If you have to really mean it for it to work. And we go out of our way to go back to our clients with suggestions. This is what you need to do to improve. This is what you need to do to be able to let us help you, so that we can bring your costs down and we can ship for your customers accurately and quickly. And besides the technology and the physical setup of the warehouse, it's also information. The information we get from when our customers can tell us, this is what you should expect. This is our SKU count. This is the depth of our SKU count. This is the fast moving items, the slow moving items. This is the size of what you're going to be shipping. Expect a spike because we're going to be having a sale going on. These are all things that help us tremendously be able to prepare for it, adapt to it, and perform for our customers. If we don't get that information, then we're challenged.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. From my perspective, I think this is about managing change, and it's people, process, and technology. And so it's not just software. One of the ways John and I really collaborate is, where the automation, it's solutions, right? And whether that's software, whether it's hardware, whether it's your current software, whether it's integrating with new software or replacement, there's no one answer. And for 3PL executives, they're all unique. And sometimes each warehouse is unique depending on the customer. Would you agree, Bill?
Yeah, while all 3PLs in theory do the same thing, we all do things a little bit differently. So there are customers that we're more suited for, and there are some customers we're not as suited for, and that should be cleared up in advance before we start working with someone, which is why wholesalers, retailers should do really their homework with who they're going to be dealing with and go through a lot of questions and see what we're capable of or if it's a good fit or not. And when you said about the tech, not just the technology, but the physical setup of the warehouse or the physical setup of what we do to service the customer, again, when we have the information, we know how to set up properly. So we've had potential clients come through the warehouse and say, where's all your fancy automation and your pick to light and your this and your that? And I tell them, I said, if you give me the information I need, and that's what's efficient to handle your account, that's what we will set up for you. But in the meanwhile, if I don't have that very precise information, I'm going to keep my warehouse as flexible as possible. The way John said, I want stuff on wheels. I want to be able to change things if I need to, because if your business changes, I can adapt quickly to it. When you have very set automation in place and conveyors and everything, and then all of a sudden the business model changes a little bit, then you got a problem.
It's about profit. And this is where, John, I'm going to, hand it to you and, how you look at this and help companies, make good decisions. There's so many choices today. You have very flexible solutions that, not the entire warehouse, a piece of a warehouse, but please go ahead. What's your position?
The way technology on the hardware side has improved over the years, in Europe, they've been doing a lot of automation for many years because they have a different model over there where, they don't have a lot of people. Here, we always threw a lot of people at things, and 55% of a picker's time in a warehouse was spent walking around, serpentining up and down aisles. So now, the new model is to bring the product to the picker, whether it's on an AGV, which, which you have to have a large volume to get a return on investment, or a conveyor and a pick module, that kind of thing. But, to what Bill said, the integration of the whole, when you take Lee slotting, the WMS, and you take the technology and put it together with the hardware, that's how you get to where Bill is, where you can meet the customer's demand. But as far as automation goes, it has to be a return on investment. If you're shipping a product that isn't doesn't have a high profitability, you're not going to be able to come in and put automatic palletizers in, or robots that are picking for you, that kind of thing. You have to go back to some traditional things. And I think that's what people need to do. They need to sit down and put together a master plan for their warehouse so that they know where they're going, because this isn't going to change. And as you said, Sandy, it's a tsunami. That's Sandy's favorite term about the e-commerce world right now. It's a tsunami. But it's really grown, and it's, what we thought would take 10 years, 2 years ago, has now we're there. So you just have to make sure that, you as a business person has to have your warehouse ready to meet the challenges, because if not, it's change or die.
Lee, I'd like, one of the opportunities for you from a global perspective, as a global company, how do you see it picking up on John? I think that's very interesting, not just to look with a pure US point of view.
Well, again, technology itself doesn't have borders. So whether it's developed in Europe, it's developed in Asia, it's on and North America, the technology itself is founded on the same principle, is the flow of information and the visibility of what you're planning on. I've know many clients and 3PLs that will take a contract with a client even though the initial data find that they get from the client is somewhat suspect, and then they work with the same principle, but after 3 months we'll get a better understanding once it's in our system, system being the client system, and we'll then have a better understanding of what their order process is and such. And having a technology platform that allows you to see all aspects of your operation gives you that visibility, and then you can basically subscribe to the adage that if I can measure it, I can manage it. But how many of our partners and clients are out there still doing things on spreadsheets where somebody's figuring it out after the fact versus having it, at your fingertips, knowing what I'm doing today? Because e-commerce is a real problem, because every day is different. It's you don't know what the volumes are going to be. A lot of planning has to be done to make sure that you don't have too many people on a given day that show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you don't have any work to support that. But then later in the week, when there's one of your clients has now put out some sort of marketing aspect and their volume goes up 200 or 300%, as Bill says, they still expect that to be delivered that same day. The challenge is, how do I do that across multiple platforms or multiple locations across borders? And the only way to do that is to have a sound technology infrastructure and working within your operations. And it's not so much how people are processing the operations, it's the planning aspect. And that leads to your profitability.
Thanks. Yeah, that's just such a great segue to the next question, Adi. So Bill, where do you see opportunities in your operations in 2021, this year and beyond, to leverage new technology? We talked a little bit the other day, software, automation, mobile devices, robotics. I know a lot of people on the call are interested in robotics, especially.
So as the same way that e-commerce has accelerated, and our clients have learned a lot about their own businesses and about their own customers over the past year to 2 years, and they're beginning to understand how important the information is and what they're able to give to us. And we're now able to take that information and say, how do we apply automation to that in the warehouse so that we can effectively perform for them? So whether it's a pick-to-light system or conveyance, we do that as well. We have, like I said to you last week when we were talking, I said, if you had told me 20 years ago, I'm going to have 30, 40, 50 of my associates in the warehouse running around holding expensive computers in their hands and working off of, advanced technology, I would have said, no way, that's not going to happen. But now, thank God, these almost everybody's computer literate. We're able to supply them with scanners, with technology that they can manage. And it makes the scanning, it makes the traceability, it makes the visibility of what's going on in the warehouse to, open to everyone, to us and our customers. They have the visibility as well. And when it comes to robotics, we actually have one customer very heavily into e-commerce who has a really good model, and they have good information. And we are setting up right now in one of our warehouses in Fontana, a 40,000 square foot area where it's going to be completely advanced technology with about 30 robots running around, moving goods around from station 1 to station 2 to station 3, and it's going to increase our effectiveness, and it's going to increase their profitability. It's there's a return of it. Like John said before, the first thing you got to see is is there an ROI on it? Absolutely. Okay. Otherwise, we're not doing things just to be fancy. But if there really is an ROI on it, then you can really make it work. Then some of the technology out there right now is fantastic. And if it ties in with your WMS or your ERP system, it becomes even that much more effective.
That's such a key point you just made. And it's certainly an area of focus for me and my customers, this integration, right? Integration, not just the WMS with all the other systems. How have you handled that?
the integration with, well,
You have an IT department, you do that internally.
we have an IT department. Yes, we do. We have a whole IT department, which costs us a lot of money, but it is worthwhile. It's necessary. We find that anytime we have any new clients or a client going into a new area of business, the first thing we do is put our IT in touch with hopefully their competent IT, and those guys got to talk to each other and make sure the information flow back and forth is set up properly, and that they have the technology necessary to feed us the information we need and to receive the information back from us as well. One of the things, that between everything we're talking about over here, we keep talking about how the information is and the planning needs to be done properly. So we don't ask our customers to plan for us. We ask them, just give us the information we need. And then what we do is between our expertise, and we bring in John, or guys like John, we bring in Lee, we bring in our partners, and together we usually say, okay, this is what we need to accomplish on behalf of our client. And from a racking or a technology perspective or an automation perspective, this is what I think. John, what do you think? Lee, what do you think? And we usually come up with a solution for our customers. So when we're talking planning, we're not telling our customers, you got to plan for us, just give us the information, let us confirm among ourselves, we'll plan for you, we'll set it up. And then after we get started, what's very important also from a technology perspective is we're able to start analyzing and parsing that data and analyzing that data. And we give feedback to our customers telling them, listen, this is what we're seeing. You're shipping X amount of goods. You're getting X amount of returns. This is the stockouts that you're having. Use this information to optimize your business. And it's very valuable to them when we're able to feed that information back to them as well.
Are you using voice technology, or is that in your game plan?
We haven't. Internally, we haven't yet. It's something we've looked at. We haven't found that it worked for us at this point, but I see where in some instances it does make sense.
John, I mean, robotics is such a wide, it's a term that's used and people think they know what it is. Every time I think I'm talking to someone about, I find out a new way robots are being used. How do you see robotics in the warehouse?
Well, it's interesting because they say that 2/3 of all warehouse people are planning, or companies are planning to add automation within the next year. What is automation? People automatically go to robotics, but as Bill said, you have to make sure the ROI is there. What we're seeing is, in certain instances, they're poly bags. So you're shipping poly bags, and you can put a robot at the end of the line, scan, and they can sort it for you. That kind of thing. You can put a robot in to handle different things coming in and out. But you have to know. I mean, a palletizer is actually a robot, which we used for years when we were shipping to retail at the end of lines. But it's as Bill said, and one of the other things when we talked before about space and 3PLs and everything else, you as a business owner or someone who's running your corporate company, you have to take a look at possibly maybe breaking out some of these functions and sending them to a 3PL. If you don't have enough space, if you don't have enough, automation to do it, break it out to someone like Bill and let them handle certain functions, or not your whole. You have to take a look at that today, because if you can't make those improvements, if you don't have the physical space to do it, you need to go to someone like Bill and a 3PL and let them do it for you. Because they'll supply the equipment that's necessary to keep your customers happy.
From my perspective, and I have customers that are from all ends of the spectrum, and some, believe it or not, are still paper driven. And we're talking about real-time data and the criticalness of real-time data. Look at the vaccine distribution, food. Lee, what do you see out in the marketplace in terms of where companies are and what they need right now?
Well, if we had an audience right now, I'd say everybody put up their hand who's had somebody come in and tell them that they support best practices, right?
Yeah.
Whether I'm a hardware company, a software company, I've consulted, people come in and tell you what's best practice. And in fact, that's a fallacy, because for every single organization, there's no such thing as a best practice. There's an optimal practice. So if you had all the money in the world, then you could subscribe to best practice. But optimal is, what can I budget for and what can I do with my budget? Whether I can't afford robots or I can't afford a put wall because I just don't have enough clients to do that. What I see with the opportunities that are in the market these days are taking what I have and maybe extending my market. So a lot of 3PLs and organizations, you're seeing things that where all we used to do is things inside the four walls. Well, now we're doing other things, route planning, load building, inbound planning, inbound shipments, so that we're actually doing more for our clients. And it's outside of our four walls. Inventory planning, things like that. These are where things where, as Bill had mentioned, the information that he's got is at the grassroots level. He knows what's going on in the operation, probably better than the people who are their customers. What products are moving, what's the cost of moving product A versus product B. And I see, companies extending certain functionality inside of their operations to drive revenue. And then at that point, they may then employ new automation, new technology, new process and procedures. But I think what we're seeing is we don't want to be a commodity. Nobody on this call right now is Amazon, right? So trying to compare yourself to Amazon is a failure. Find out where your niche is in the market and improve your niche in your market. Get whatever you require to support your niche. Don't be one of everything. As Bill said, there's some clients that you have, if they're not making money for you, maybe you jettison them and focus on the ones that you're good at and that you make money. So from a technology model, that's where your flexibility comes in, right? What do I have inside of my toolbox that makes me flexible, that allows me to handle the market that I want to be in? The market that I was in 20 years ago may A, not exist today, or B, what I set up my operation for 20 years ago doesn't support the markets that I'm in today. So your operation has to be dynamic, has to be from a planning perspective, it's from a business perspective, and it has to be from a technology perspective. So I think where your question to me is, where do I see it? Do your own evaluation, on your own organization, and then start from there.
I love everything you said. I mean, obviously, I work a lot with clients in just helping them get their own criteria established and clear from a 360 point of view in their operation. But one of the things you said, and it ties back to what we discussed the other day, Bill, and I was really impressed by it, is that you've taken your expertise, and this is growing so fast, and it's tough for companies to do profitably. So not only have you expanded your outsourcing model as a 3PL, you're now taking on other companies' buildings and running it for them. Maybe you want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so we have companies, obviously there are companies that have their own warehouse, they have their own leases, or they own their own warehouse. And at that point already, so they're looking at this and going, okay, well, this is great, but I'm not outsourcing my goods to a 3PL because I have my own warehouse. So now what am I supposed to do? So what we do is we do staff and manage on behalf of warehouses, on behalf of customers, where we come into their warehouse and we do an analysis of what they have and what should be done differently and what should be improved. But as opposed to a consultant who will usually come in, tell you, okay, this is what you should do, and then leave it to you to do, we are operators. So we come in there and we actually take over the operation of the building. So we bring in our staff, we evaluate their staff, see who's worth keeping, who's not. We bring in our staff, we bring in our management, and we bring in our expertise and our knowledge. And if necessary, we will bring in our systems, or recommend to them what systems to bring in to improve the efficiency of their warehouse. So we have a customer, for instance, who has a 150,000 square foot warehouse in New Jersey, who we've been working with for years. And over the past few years, we brought in our staff. We've increased their throughput by over 35%. We reduced the staff that they had in there by over 40%. Their e-commerce business has grown dramatically. So we've introduced to them also to bring in some automation, some conveyor, change some of their racking around so that it works, so that we're able to operate efficiently. And what it's done for them is it's both increased their throughput, it's reduced their cost, it's allowed management to concentrate on their core competency, which is manufacturing and selling, not running a logistics operation. And it's reduced their liability, because the truth is, when you're running warehouses, you're running a warehouse, your associates and your staff are primarily unskilled, poorly educated labor with a high turnover rate, and they're working in what's a fairly dangerous environment. And we know how to run an operation like that safely and efficiently. And if you don't, you're taking on a lot of potential liability, particularly in this litigious age of workers' comp claims and other types of claims as well, which is just not, a company just doesn't need that headache. So when we come in there, we're able to take all that off your heads, run your operation efficiently, and suddenly the warehouse that you leased, that you own, is suddenly much more worthwhile.
And there are definitely many more options today to do. First of all, you have to come with competency and expertise. Otherwise, it's a lose-lose situation. And so I respect that, what you bring to the table. I have customers who are challenged even in their own leased buildings. Do they invest in RF infrastructure? And, how do they support that? But today, if as long as you have cellular coverage, and some warehouses don't, but if you have cellular coverage, you could just use mobile devices and can avoid some investment and get that real-time flow. So, John, what's your thought about that aspect Bill was just sharing?
Yeah, well, I think, Bill, I've seen it with a few of our customers. They like that setup. I mentioned the other day when we spoke about it, they have a major pharmaceutical company. And what they like about it is if they're unhappy with the 3PL, they can ask them to leave and they can bring someone else in to run it, and they own all the equipment, they own the building, so on and so forth. So it makes it's a good win-win for them in that case. But we get back to what Bill was talking about automation. When people see Amazon commercials and they see these automated guided vehicles, so on and so forth, each warehouse is specific, each company is specific, and you need to do what's best for you on a return on investment. We can automate warehouses, but it's going to cost, you make it totally automated, automatic storage and retrieval, robots, everything else, make it almost 100% automated. But in the end, is there a return on investment there? So I really think what we want to convey to people today, no pun intended, is to go out and find professionals to guide you, to get you to the point of where you have some type of master plan to be ready to move into this new, the new normal of e-commerce.
It's a great segue. We had a great question from the audience. Kimberly from the audience asked, how would you suggest tackling an e-commerce expansion plan internationally? And, you could take that from a perspective of either a manufacturer distribution, or 3PL, or, we're in a global, as you put it, Lee, it's a global world. Everything's flowing. You don't know where your customers are and where things are shipping from and where supplies are coming from, but that's supply chain. So Lee, what's your thoughts on an answer for that?
Well, again, the key piece in that would be the technology piece is how do I bridge the gaps, the islands? So having a solution that actually might be multilingual, so different languages, would be first of all, and then finding what the trading partners are. Obviously, one of the biggest problems that you will have with international throughout the US and the rest of the world would be the difference between metric and the imperial measurements. So things coming into the US might be coming in on 48 by 40, but if you're going to Australia, you have to put them on 1.2 meter by 1.2 meter. There's a lot of things that go into creating conversion factors for doing international. These are things that are the challenge that you get to, and then is it omni-channel? Are you multiple distribution points? I know that Bill, we talked about last week, has people that do last mile shipping, but then they also have people that make pickup, and they might have store delivery all inside the same order and same, we'll call it client services. So you have to have the ability to distinguish with when they give you an order, what channel is it going through? And internationally, this is always a challenge when you start looking at different languages, different measurements, and maybe different SKU range. So it's always difficult to give you a simple answer on a very complex question, such as setting things up. But where do you start from is the framework that Bill has probably started out with first, is get an understanding of what it is you want to do.
I agree. I was thinking, as you were saying that, Lee, what you said before, Bill, about just getting information from folks. And I would just think internationally, that just raises the bar 10x, if not higher. And it's about getting the best information you can from your customers, partners, suppliers. But what's your point on, what would be your point of view on this?
On getting information from your customers?
Yeah, internationally, the question was tackling an e-commerce expansion plan internationally.
I'll be honest, we have an international division, which concentrates more on packaging and some distribution. I focus much more on the domestic market, United States and Canada. I'm not really going to, I don't have a lot to contribute as far as when you go international. I'm sorry.
Okay. We had another question. John, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Sandy, I just wanted to comment on that. I think the answer to that question is make sure you pick the right partner. Lee's company is an international company. We happen to be working on a project with him right here in North America, because a company that came from Europe, I believe, is working with Lee, and he came to me. And so, if you pick the right partners that can help you and that know what's going on in those areas, that's really going to help you if you go to Europe, I think.
You have to deal with people you trust. I think more than ever. That's an interesting question for you, Bill. You have an IT department, but where do you go? To get information. Who are your trusted advisors that help you through these decisions?
Our trusted advisors? Well, obviously, we have a very strong staff internally. But then again, the vendors and the partners that we deal with, like John and like Lee and like yourself, et cetera, are industry experts who have all been in this for a long time, and we're not ashamed to go and ask for advice when we need it. If we always want a second or a third opinion also, so that we can make the right decisions on behalf of our company and behalf of our customers. We're not going to sit down in a room with just 2 or 3 of us and come up with all the answers all by ourselves, because despite all of our years of experience and everything we've seen, there's always new things out there. And we talk to people and we stay educated on what's new in the market and what could be useful and what isn't.
Great. Adi, could you put up, I wanted to share, we took a poll when people registered, in the spirit of time, and I wanted to make sure we were able to share that with folks. We asked, when you registered, what was your biggest challenge as it relates to e-commerce? Obviously, current technology, what people have today, and I guess what to do with it, how to leverage it, how to integrate it, and then strategic direction is second. So as we see this, and I would just kind of like as a last, round, and just final thoughts. Bill, what are your final thoughts for today?
Well, when it comes to technology, first of all, these days, the 3PL will have a lot of the technology that will help you. So it doesn't necessarily require our customers to invest a lot of money. And a lot of the technology that's out there today is not nearly as expensive as it used to be. So there's a lot available to help your business, to help you collect and process information. But you do have to pick the right technology, and you do have to understand that Excel just doesn't cut it anymore. You do need something much more advanced than that. And it has to be able to communicate with your 3PL partners. And then as far as strategic direction is concerned, that goes back to what I said before. Know what your goals are, and then have a really good discussion with your vendors, with your 3PL, with your automation supplier, with your WMS or your technology partners, and have a discussion either one-on-one or actually bring everyone all together and have a group discussion, so you can really hash out what's the best strategic decisions and the best way for your company to move forward.
My feedback on this is, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So you have to start by understanding your own requirements. And as an executive, that's just not your requirements. It's really looking at it from a 360 view in your organization, from operations, from customer service, from IT, and really looking at and sales. So you really understand where you are, what you have, where you want to go, and what it's going to take, planning to get there. That's where people sometimes don't pay enough attention. The plan and the execution of that plan. is where the rubber meets the road. John, last thoughts?
Yeah, my last thoughts are, I think Bill hits the nail right on the head. It's technology, you couple that with the hardware and the workings of the warehouse itself. And if you can plan and strategically put yourself in the right place, what Lee does with the slotting, all of these things matter. They all increase productivity, which increases your bottom line, which makes you profitable and makes you successful with your customers. So I think, if anyone takes anything away from here is you should start to take a good hard look, rely on professionals to help you plot for the future and for e-commerce business right now.
Lee?
I think the key point that I would make out there, we all understand that technology is a driving force in today's e-commerce market, and being flexible and adaptable is great. But understand that technology alone doesn't get you there. Technology, it could be limiting if you get something that's not what's required, and you have to change your operation to fit the technology, which we've seen many times in the past. But I would say that whether it's planning software, it's execution software, you buy automation, if you don't do the planning behind it, none of that will be successful. So nothing guarantees you success except your own input and your own managing the process.
I like that. Also, to me, it's about people, process, and technology. And I love the way Bill answered the question about trusted advisors, and he led with his staff, his people. And that's, it's just so true. I want to thank everyone. And Lee, I'd like you to just share, as a host, I want to thank you again for doing this today. You want to share what people can expect to receive who registered?
Yeah, so everybody, what we'll do is we'll get you a copy of the presentation that we've got with the data that we've used as backup for some of our discussion. So we'll get that out to you within an email. There will also be a recording of today's session. If you want a link to that recording, we'll put that up in the email as well, so that you'll be able to go look at it on our YouTube page. The contact information for all of us is here on the last page of the presentation. So if you need 3PL services, Bill would be quite happy to take your call. The rest of us, we're here as our goal here is to be advisors. We're not here out trying to sell you anything at this point. So we appreciate your time. We know your time is valuable these days, and within our group, 80, thanks for putting this all together. And everybody should be receiving an email from 80 within the next 2 to 3 days once we get this recording all up.
Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for attending today. Have a great day.
Thank you.